I'm Joshua Bardwell, and this is the Leggero S5 Bind and Fly Racing Quadcopter from AVANTQUADS. You want to see a magic trick? Reducio. And this is the 4-inch S4 from AVANTQUADS, and we're going to be looking at them today. Stay tuned. Here's something that really annoys me about quadcopter frames today. They're getting smaller and smaller, lighter and lighter, and they're doing a worse and worse job of protecting the actual contents of the frame. An ultra small, ultra light frame might be the right choice for you if you're the kind of hot snot racing pilot who brings 7 of the exact same quad to a race, and when you crash one, you just throw it back in the bin and get the next one out. Well, that's fine, but most of us aren't that pilot. When I crash, I like to pick the quad up and just dust it off and get it back in the air. And the number one thing that I see frames doing today is they hang the camera off the front of the frame in such a way that it's really not very well protected. And many people say, oh, that's okay. What are the chances of something coming in and getting that? Well, it happens eventually. You play, you roll the dice enough times, you get unlucky. A frame that comes to mind is the Diatone Crusader GT, a fine ready-to-fly quadcopter. Sadly, I never got to review it, but it's a good one. And one of the big complaints about it, though, is that everybody I know who's owned one has knocked the freaking camera off the front of it at least once. And, the camera is, okay, that'll knock you out of a day of flying, no question. So I really like frames that strike a good balance between being light and still being relatively easy to build and relatively good at protecting the contents, specifically the FPV camera. And that's what we've got here with the Leggero S5. Now, the S5 is a stretched X racing quadcopter frame, but it's also available as a bind and fly model that you can get if you just want somebody else to build it for you. And we'll start looking at this frame just by looking at how the camera is. You can see we haven't really given anything up by going to this style of this is the same style of ultralight frame that we see, like the Sharpoo QAVX. Many frames are taking their cues from this style of design, but we still have a reasonably well protected camera in that it's somewhat tucked in behind the top plate, and it's not just hanging out the end by 2 screws going to get lopped off the first time something gives it a good whack. So that is immediately appeals to me about this frame. The rest of the frame, what is there to say about it? I mean, this kind of design, it's so minimalist that there's not a lot to critique. Certainly you could screw it up by for example, by milling too close to the edge or something. But at the end of the day, it's 2 plates. It's a bottom plate and a top plate and 4 standoffs, and there you go. The quality of the carbon is very nice on this one. We can see that it's got the milled edge, a very clean milled edge. A lot of people file the edges of their carbon with sandpaper, and one reason to do that is, it just looks nice, but also if you have any cables or anything running up against it, it keeps it from cutting, and it makes it a little nicer on your hand. Most people don't do that, I think, and it's nice to have that done for you. It's just a nice finishing touch, and it's good to see. I also like that all of the edges here are nicely rounded, nicely angled. That removes stress points. If we look at where the screw hole has been placed here, it's not right here in the joint, but right here. They've set this angle so that the stress point is minimized, and where the stress point is not right at the screw point. So that's a really nice touch. I also like quads that have a little nub here at the end to help protect the motors from getting whacked. If you get an end-on hit, it'll do just a little bit to help protect the motor. I'm not a fan of motor protectors. People say, well, why don't you run motor protectors? And the reason I don't like them is, number one, they make it really hard to grip the motor when you're putting the prop on and off. And number two, motors run a lot hotter with those motor protectors on. They get a lot less airflow. So I'm not a big fan of them. They're right for certain type. I mean, they're right for a certain kind of build, right? They don't weigh very much, and if you're a noob who's going to bash the crap out of your motors again and again and again, and maybe you're not running your motors that close to the edge, so they're not getting that hot, maybe they're the right choice for you, but I'm not a big fan of them. So I like seeing this little nub on the end of the arms to help protect the motors. Now, there is another thing I notice about this frame, and that is the direction of the carbon fiber weave. And I'm showing you here the direction of the weave, so if you can correct me in the comments if I've got this wrong. But I think, as I understand it, it's ideal for the weave to be in line with the direction of the arm. So we can see the interlocking weave of the carbon fiber, and it's going like this. It's going 45 degrees to the direction of the arm. And what's happened here is that when the designer lays out the CAD file for cutting the frame out of the sheet of carbon fiber, he can put them in like this, right? If the sheet is like so, he can put them in like that, or he could put them in like that. If you put them straight up and down, then the arms are diagonal, and the arms are 45 degrees to the weave, you see? And I know that there's a right way and a wrong way to lay it out. And I'm not 100% sure I remember. I think I remember correctly, but I'm not 100% sure. So we'll check down in the comments to see if I've got it right. But I believe the ideal way to lay it out for the strongest plate is to have the frame angled relative to the sheet, so that the direction of the weave is parallel to the direction of the arm. Having the direction of the weave 45 degrees to the direction of the arm, I think, is weaker. That being said, that is a nit that many people pick, but practically speaking, I suspect a well-designed bottom plate is going to be stronger than most pilots can crash it, and it remains to be seen. If we take a close look here, we can see that the areas where stress would build up, for example, well, I can't find one for you. A lot of times people will design a bottom plate so there's a relatively sharp angle where the arm joins the bottom plate, and that's a place where the direction of the weave will become very important, because if it's wrong, there won't be anything sort of holding that together except the resin that holds the sheets together. The carbon fiber itself will not be contributing any strength. Whereas if we look here, all the sharp angles where that might become relevant have really just been removed from this design, and so maybe it doesn't matter as much. I don't know, but just something to think about as you're looking at quadcopter frames. Look at the direction of the weave relative to the direction of the arms. I think, if I remember correctly, that it's ideal for it to be parallel, not at 45-degree angle. The bottom plate is 4 millimeters, the top plate is 2 millimeters, and that's pretty standard for a build like this. Sometimes you'll go 3 millimeters on the bottom plate if you want a little bit more lightness, but 4 millimeters is fine, especially given that it's a single piece, and if you do break something, you're going to be swapping out the whole plate. For a very small top plate like this, I think 2 millimeters is more than adequate. On the much longer plates, you'll get these long stretches without any reinforcing standoffs, and you might want something like 2.5 millimeters. That's what I've got, for example, on my QAVR bottom plate to strengthen it, but 2 millimeters should be more than enough for a quad with a very small top plate like this. It's also designed for a bottom mounted battery, so you're not going to have a ton of weight there on the top plate either. You can see as it catches the light, this has got some custom color. This is the blue one. It's available in various colors as well, so if you have a particular favorite color, you can get it accented in that color. That's not just a trick of the camera or a trick of the light. It is a kind of cool, kind of like that. Oh. The flight controller on this is the MyAirbot F4, so it's an F4 flight controller. You got a lot of room there for future proofing. It is made by MyAirbot, but it's not an omnibus. It's just the regular MyAirbot F4, and that means it does not have Betaflight OSD on board, which is a little bit of a shame. You know I like Betaflight OSD, but it does comes pre-set up for telemetry, and the camera is the Swift 2. So the camera has VBAP monitoring on board. You got a little OSD there with fly time and VBAP monitoring. So that's acceptable. Telemetry and an OSD in the camera for VBAP monitoring, that'll do. I will point out, though, I've noticed that on every Swift 2 I've ever seen, the VBAP monitoring reads a few tenths of a volt low. And there's no way to calibrate that, unfortunately. They just don't let you, they don't have a way to do it. So I've put that in as a feature request to RunCam, and maybe that'll change in the future. But for now, if you have the Swift 2, what you need to do is you just need to figure out how many tenths of a volt low it reads, and you need to just mentally calibrate yourself to stop flying at the appropriate voltage. That's just what you got to do. The flight controller is soft mounted on O-rings. It's got a little double stack of O-rings here, and O-rings on top. No O-rings on top. Okay. Well, the 4-inch has O-rings on top, and that's good. I always like to use the rubber vibration isolation standoffs, but the problem might be finding the right size. As you can see, it's pretty tight. There's not a lot of room here, so fine. It's also nice that they've taken the additional step. I'm not sure if you can see it here, but they've taken the additional step of putting just a little bit of glue on the top of the nut here to help keep it on. Which, of course, as soon as you take it off, if you ever have to work on it, that'll be undone. But it's nice that they've taken the additional step to help protect that and keep that from coming loose. The video transmitter is, it's forgettable. There's nothing remarkable about it. It doesn't do smart audio, which I love smart audio, man. Even if you don't have Betaflight OSD, you can still, if you have a smart audio capable video transmitter, you can still control it using an Android app on your phone by plugging into the USB port. So you basically plug into the USB port, you start the app on your phone, and you can control your video transmitter that way. So don't think that just because you don't have Betaflight OSD that smart audio is not useful for you. It can be. So if you need to modify your channel or whatever, you're going to be going in here pushing a button. And there is an LED display on here, but of course you can see that you can't really see it, can you? So basically, I think if you needed to change your channel or anything on your transmitter, you'd be taking your top plate off. And that's a shame. It's not the end of the world, but what it means is that you're not going to want to change your channel. You're just going to be like, I'm on channel 1, guys. Anybody okay? I guess we're channel buddies. Yeah. The motors are Brother Hobby Returner R3 beastly motors. We'll see how they fly, but beastly. And yes, they are the 2600 kV version. I like high kV. Listen, unless you are trying to go for flight time, just get high kV motors, guys. The days when you had to trade torque for speed are kind of gone. These motors nowadays have plenty of torque, even the higher kV versions. It's just they'll suck the crap out of your battery. So if you just want to go fast, get high. Don't get 2300 kV motors anymore. 2500 kV maybe, or 2600 kV. That's where all the cool kids are, in my opinion. If you care about flight time and healthy batteries, then maybe 2300 is more your speed. So that's the 5-inch version, and this is the 4-inch version. Basically the same design of the frame, just a little bit smaller. The parts are also the same, AirBot F4, etc., etc. Really identical electronics. The main thing that's changed, though, is the motors. These motors are Brother Hobby Tornado 1407 3000 kV motors, and I'm really interested to see how these motors perform. I've flown several 4-inch builds with 2204 and even 2205 motors, which many people would have said were too big and heavy for a 4-inch build. But with the evolution of 4-inch props and etc., the copters performed great. It's a little bit, I'm a little bit suspicious of how freaking small these motors are, but Brother Hobby is known for getting a lot of performance out of them. I'll be really interested to see how they do. The props that are on them are Dal TJ 4045, and I've flown the Dal TJ 5045, the 5-inch version of this prop, and I really liked it. I feel like the evolution of 5-inch props has gone to the point where this is no longer my favorite 5-inch prop. Well, it was never my favorite. I always liked it, but I always liked the standard 5040 profile better, the King Kong 5040, for various reasons. But in the 4-inch, this is a really interesting choice. It's light enough that it may suit this smaller 1407 motor. I considered using the 4040 props, the wide blade. I don't have one handy. Darn, I was going to grab one. It's a wide blade, tri-blade 4-inch prop. And Eddie from AVANTQUADS suggested that it might be a little bit too heavy for this motor to be ideal. I will say I've flown these props before, and they're a little bit more fragile than I really prefer. It's a little, I mean, they fly great, but it's a little too easy to bend one and break it off at the hub, and it feels like every time I crash, I'm breaking one. So that may be a trade-off we make for these light motors. Speaking of weight, how much does it weigh? Well, if we put the quad on there, it's 186 without the battery, and now we put a 1004S on here, and we get 322 grams. I remember when UAV Futures reviewed this quad, he talked about it being under 250 grams. I'm not sure how you're going to pull that off. I think you're going to really struggle to keep it under 250 grams. I suppose with the right battery you could do it, but a 4S 1000 is what they recommend. Comes in at 323 grams. That's still really frickin' light, and it starts to address how this guy might, on the right race course, be as fast or faster than a 5-inch quad. If we compare that to the 5-inch version, it comes in at 274 grams. 274? 274. If we stick a battery on there, we come in at 456 grams without a high-def camera, without a GoPro, which is, again, that's pretty light for a 5-inch racer. It's not the lightest that you've ever seen. Some of them get down around 400 for a 5-inch, but for a ready-to-fly, it's pretty freaking light. Well, okay, let's get this puppy in the air. We'll start with a 4-inch. And here's the 5-inch. Yeah, they flew pretty good, huh? Between them, the 5-inch really knocked my socks off. I think that's because of the Brother Hobby Returner R3 2600 kV motors. Those motors are total beasts. I've heard from many people. This is the first time I've flown them, and they had so much power. Like, I would try to do a graceful move over the top of a tree and instead just go to the moon. And they weren't nice to the batteries. I was able to fly my Infinity 1300 and 1500 batteries. I didn't have to use my really top tier batteries just to make them work. Whereas if you compare them to like the LD Power 2306 motors, I really couldn't even use them on the Infinity batteries. They just sagged so much. And I had to use like the Thunder Powers and the True Powers, the really good batteries. The Infinities were usable on the Brother Hobby motors. But definitely they were working. They were definitely taking a beating, and they were sagging. Their lifespan was shortened. There's no doubt about that. But geez, the performance of that copter, just insane. The 4-inch, I know the kind of flying I tend to do isn't really optimized for 4-inch copters. I like big moves, lots of altitude. And so I tried to do some tighter flying under the trees while still giving you guys some full throttle punches to let you see just how it moved. And I will say that I tried to emulate that same stuff with the 5-inch copter and had a much harder time doing it. The 4-inch is great for tighter stuff, for smaller locations. Yeah, if you're looking for a 4-inch copter, I think this is a great one. And I know that there's courses out there where the 4-inch copter will win, and I'm not a big time racer, but I've talked to some guys. I talked to a guy just last week when I was up in Boston. He said at his club, the kind of tracks they lay out, they'll see 4-inch copters just pass 5-inch copters, even in the straights. They come out of the corner so much faster and gain speed so much more quickly that on the right course, a 4-inch is absolutely faster. I'm just not really focused on that kind of flying, and so I feel a little bit guilty for not showcasing the 4-inch maybe in its exact right environment. But it's a really solid build, just like the 5-inch, and seems like it has pretty good performance. I still don't feel like I've answered the question of which is better for a 4-inch build, a 1407 or like a 2205, like we see, for example, on the Quadristeria Rush. Only like a good racing pilot and putting it through some courses would really tell. But it's light. It would be even better if I took the high def camera off of it. But of course, I knew you guys would want to see high def footage of it flying. So, yeah, knock another 50 to 70 grams off of it, take the run cam off, and wow, that thing would probably really rip. If either of these copters interest you, I've got a link down in the video description to AVANTQUAD's page. They have a bunch of different options in terms of colors and so forth. I should also point out that the 5-inch version is available if you really hate your batteries. It's available with the Returner R4 2700 kV motors. Yeah, so yikes. The 4-inch one comes in around $310. The 5-inch one comes in around $360, depending on which motors you get. You could do a lot worse with it. You could struggle to build one with it. It's all quality components. Yeah, put together well. Flies really nice. I like it. So there you go. Thanks for watching. Happy flying.